Welcome, everybody, to this panel discussion on health beyond hospitals and private practices. This is Dr. Hamid Elmir, and I am the host of Podcast with Dr. E. Today, I am honored to lead this wonderful panel of amazing physicians and health professionals that I will be introducing them momentarily. This event is one of its kind put together, especially during this pandemic. I appreciate and applaud our great panelists for taking part in this critical discussion. And we will discuss why is it so crucial to have such discussions at these times, hard times. First, let me introduce our amazing panelists. On a panel today, we have Dr. Manu Bolage, Dr. Nashad Lateeb, Dr. Ali Lankarani, and Dr. Hokehe Efyong. Hopefully she's going to join us soon. Welcome, everybody, dear panelists on the show, on this panel discussion.
Thanks for having us.
Excited to be here.
Forward to this.
Dr. Manu is a naturopathic medical doctor and CEO of Bowen College, where she has trained over 2,500 healthcare practitioners in her methodology. Dr. Manu helps people take ownership of their choices in health. The best-selling author of What Patients Don't Say If Doctors Don't Ask. She helps people release chronic physical and emotional pain by helping them focus on their health noses, and not their diagnosis. She has spoken on international stages like JT Fox's Money, Health, and Business, TEDx in Las Vegas. She is the host of the Healers Cafe podcast and has appeared on ABC, CTV, and NBC. She has also a personal story that she probably will talk more about it, while overcoming stage 4 cancer without pharmaceutical or hysterectomy. She discovered that we are accustomed to thinking that conflict resolution is mediated externally, but when it comes to health, it is an internal process. She has pioneered a healer in every household movement, embracing the body's capacity to heal and the choice to govern our lives. Her new book, A Healer in Every Household, Simple Solutions for Stress, has just been launched in October 2020, and I am lucky enough to have one of them here. Dr. Manu, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
We also have Dr. Nashad Lateeb on the panel today. Dr. Nashad is a board-certified emergency medicine ER physician, commonly known as ER among other people, and with 15 plus years of clinical experience, she is a fellow of the American College of Emergency Physicians and has been an expert panelist for Texas Medical Board for more than 10 years. She completed her medical degree at the New York College of Osteopathic Medicine, followed by a residency in emergency medicine at Albert Einstein Medical Center in Bronx, New York. She has practiced a variety of hospital settings, ranging from county hospitals to small suburban and community hospitals. Currently, she is the Associate Director of Cypress Emergency Associates and oversees a private group of 25 physicians serving 4 emergency departments in Northwest Houston. In addition to being on the front line of acute illness for most of her career, Dr. Lateeb has always had a passion for health, wellness, and movements towards preventive medicine. She has witnessed firsthand the need for a more comprehensive approach to health. Her practice philosophy implies the benefits of traditional medicine while also embracing its limitations. Dr. Lateeb has spent much of her free time over the course of her career studying functional medicine and integrative health while applying those practices to her life and with her patients in the ER daily. certified in functional medicine. She is passionate about creating a movement away from a sick care model of medicine and towards one where disease is reversed and or prevented. Her goal is to make her clients feel and look their best through lifestyle modifications, movement, nutrition, mindfulness, meditation, and strategic implementation of natural supplements. Her evidence-based approach is aimed at reigniting the body's innate ability to heal itself and create optimal conditions for health. She is also the co-founder of Define Health, and she will be talking more about that. Dr. Nashat, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
And let me introduce our other great panelists. Dr. Ali Lankrani is also with us on this panel, affectionately known by his patients and his clients as Dr. L, the parent whisperer, is a clinical neuroscientist with a background in chiropractic medicine. Dr. L currently runs online programs that support parents and their children and encourages healthy, growing relationships between them. Dr. L is internationally published and best-selling author. His mission is to promote brain-based healthcare options to support safety, health, education, and productivity of parents to foster their optimum potential. He is passionate about improving himself personally and taking part in making the world a better place. His ultimate desire in life is to leave a legacy to further the fostering of future generations' potential. Dr. L enjoys being the active father of his two amazing kids and is the founder of Amazing Parents Network and also role model maker. Dr. L, it's a pleasure to have you on this panel.
Thank you. Hello, colleagues and friends, and I'm very excited to be here.
It's a pleasure. And Dr. Afyung is also a pediatrician and certified brain health ADHD consultant. She helps parents of children diagnosed with ADHD who are frustrated and worried about their child's behavior and are ready to partner with their child to get to the root cause of the behaviors. Also to help them heal and flourish in mind and body using brain health strategies and functional medicine. She's the CEO of ADHD Practical Solutions with a mission to help 1 million children with ADHD accomplish their big dreams. She's also the founder of Kids of Hope, a 501c3 organization dedicated to inspiring communities to share love, hope, and dignity with children in foster care system. After being injured in 2 car accidents, labeled as average and told it was impossible for her to fulfill her dream of becoming a pediatrician, she uses her experience with developing resilience and thriving in the face of obstacles to help children diagnosed with ADHD and children in foster care see themselves as who they truly are, fiercely encourage, courageous and capable of fulfilling their dreams. She also has spoken at the United Nations Youth Program, and she is on the board of directors for American Academy of Pediatrics, Oklahoma chapter. And I am so happy and excited to have you all on this panel today. Let me begin with acknowledging the tremendous and outstanding efforts of healthcare providers and all frontliners who tirelessly dedicated their time, energy, and resources to save lives and making sure people receive the care they need during these hard times. I will be also starting posing questions momentarily to the panelists, but before that, I was just looking at the participants and also on Facebook. It's amazing that lots of people joined us, and we are hoping more people will join us soon. And just some tips for participants. Dear participants, actually, first of all, thank you all for joining us and watching us live on Zoom and Facebook. You have actually taken the first step towards your goals to serve millions of people, and that's what we believe. Please keep in mind to use the hand raising option, which is also on Zoom, and making sure that if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, and I'll be allowing you to directly speak and ask your questions from the panelists. And also there is the option with the Q&A on Zoom, and feel free to also ask your questions there. Just type it in, and either myself or the panelists themselves will be reading the questions and answering to your questions. And also on Facebook, we are live on Facebook, and definitely folks on Facebook, please comment your questions, and I would be happy to read them to the panelists and have your questions answered. So as you're all aware, the topic of discussion is health beyond hospitals and private practices. By definition, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And this is the definition by WHO. And our panelists know this better, that health is like a triangle. We will be learning more from their practices, their approach to health, and how we consider all these three different triangles of health. And we believe that health is not limited to hospitals and private practices. It has to start with every individual, community, business, and institutions. Dear panelists, let's begin with the question that is very important to me, and I'm sure it's important to you and to audience. And that is why you do what you do. And please go first. Let's. Why don't we start with Dr. Manu then?
Oh, okay. Well, how did I start with this? I think I was always interested in an integrative approach to health, and that's why, for me, it was health gnosis. How can we, which the word didn't exist, so I invented it, because we have diagnosis, which falls into really a system of disease management. And my idea was, well, we need to start with health, and how can we diagnose the best health possible? What can we do to achieve that? And that is something that is extremely empowering to people, because they're completely able and responsible to maintaining and also preventing diseases. So it's a very, so I was looking at it when I was accepted in medical school and in naturopathic school, and I thought, oh, which one shall I do? And I was looking at options for healing that were more prevalent in naturopathic school, because we had Chinese medicine, we had nutrition. So we had many things that some of the more traditional medical schools didn't have. Now there's a big movement, and hopefully bigger and bigger, of integrative medical doctors seeing the need for people to combine the two. Right? Like we have all the diagnostic tools, we have wonderful things available, but it's like putting the two together. So for me, it's really been about empowering people and allowing them to see and believe that their bodies are perfect, beautiful, powerful, and capable of change and of health if they treated it properly and lovingly and fed it the right foods and put themselves in the right environment. So for me, it was I actually had law school first. So when I went into that, it was partially it was I had children or my first child, and it's like, oh my goodness, I better know what to do, um, so to make sure that I can keep them healthy. And so that was the personal piece, but the rest was really more an empowerment, which is what I thought would happen with law, but it didn't really happen that way. So I switched into medicine because if we don't look after our bodies, we have nothing left.
Right.
So that was kind of the beginning. And 30 years later, I think it's the same.
Well, that is great. It's very empowering and inspiring. And I've been, I'm following your work, your tireless efforts in making sure that people are healthy and staying healthy, and not only the health professionals themselves training in through your college, but also what you do for your clients and for the public in general is really amazing, and I really appreciate that. And it makes it very easy for us as healthcare practitioners to know the why. Of course, for everybody, but health practitioners, the why is already known, I guess, when you first start going to medical school, and that's to help people. And how it's really amazing that panels like this and amazing people come together to share their thoughts and experiences in helping people. And I was just, when I'm looking down here, please, I hope it's not offending anybody, that I'm trying to read also the questions through Facebook and making sure everything is going smoothly. Um, and also on the Zoom, the attendees and participants, or it's probably a little early to ask the questions, but definitely when I'm looking down here, I'm trying to make sure everything is going smoothly. And definitely we will learn more about you, Dr. Mano, and your Bowen College and in your practice. Um, let's move on and hear from others. I think Dr. L still would say that ladies first. Then we will just continue to hear from Dr. Nashat.
Yeah, so my journey has been a very windy path. I mean, I always identified myself as a healer, but I have to say what a healer meant to me, back when I was applying to medical school and what a healer means now has really evolved. And of course, I'm still working in the ER. I'm a board certified ER doctor, and I've been on the front line since the beginning of the pandemic. So that has also had a pretty radical influence on my outlook on health and the future of medicine. And so I love the emergency department. There's nothing more gratifying than be able to save a life in real time and, give somebody that instant relief of pain or discomfort. And I'm passionate about emergency medicine and I love acute care. But what I've realized over the course of my journey, which was really actually triggered by the loss of my mom a couple of years ago, who was my absolute best friend. And she was 67. She was the ultimate picture of health. So she exercised 5 days a week. She ate organic food, no processed food, no refined sugar, cooked every day. I mean, she was on top of it. And she looked probably about 15 years younger than she was. Everyone thought we were sisters. And when she left this world, it forced me to re-examine the medicine and our healing process and what resources we provide to our patients, and made me question, are they adequate? And so it was a major pivot in my career. I had always been very dedicated to integrative and functional medicine, but that forced me to really re-examine everything. And what I realized over the course of that journey is that what we are learning in medical school now is based on studies that were done a very long time ago. And the way that we are practicing functional medicine and integrative health is really based on more current studies. And I realized that we are attempting to take an acute care model and apply it to chronic disease, which simply doesn't work. And which is why in the ER, I have a revolving door of the same patients coming in and out and presenting over and over for the same complaints. And we are throwing Band-Aids at them rather than looking at the root cause, uncovering where the biochemical break in the process is, and then reversing it by triggering the body's innate ability to heal itself.
Right.
And so through this journey, I've realized that the future of medicine and modern medicine, in my opinion, is really needs to be focused on functional medicine. And my goal has now shifted. I mean, I have a bilateral goal, right? I'm still in acute care. We need acute care, right? Because there's no amount of functional medicine or integrative health we can throw at somebody actively having a heart attack to turn them around, right? We still need acute care medicine. But my goal is to be able to work from the ground up and help people avoid needing my services in the ER. I would ultimately like people to be able to heal from the inside out and avoid needing me in the first place. And so now my mission is really rooted in that. And it's also rooted in helping people feel and look their absolute best, because there's so many, patients that I have that feel awful, and their labs are normal and they go to the traditional doctor and the answer is, well, you're just getting older, or, oh, you're just really stressed out because you work a lot and you have 3 kids. And I don't find that an acceptable answer. And I do really believe that our bodies are capable of looking and feeling, its absolute best, as long as we set up, our environments and optimize our bodies to be able to do what they're meant to do. And so with the launch of my practice in the middle of the pandemic, I was working the front line and launching a new practice at the same time. At Defined Health, my philosophy and approach is to take the best of both worlds, the best of both traditional medicine, integrative, and functional medicine. And I'm an Institute of Functional Medicine certified practitioner. And so I take all of that and put it together and create a plan that will optimize health, help people avoid the emergency room in the first place, and feel and look their absolute best.
Excellent. What an amazing mission in life. And first of all, I really appreciate the hard work that you are doing at the ER. And I'm pretty sure that everybody, our audience, the panelists and people across the world are appreciating the tireless efforts that physicians like yourself are actually putting their lives at risk in the front line to make sure that everybody else is healthy. And as you just mentioned, it's really important to have the conventional medicine and ER and other practices in hospitals. And this panel discussion that says health beyond hospital and private practices it really doesn't mean that we are trying to replace one with another, but trying to make sure that as you just put it very well in great sentences that I can't probably say the same way. The ER and other conventional medicine is necessary when it comes to heart attack, when it comes to necessary emergency care, and but then you also mentioned about the people and patients or clients who are repeatedly coming for the same problem to the ER. And that reminds me of my clinical time when I was doing my residency in pediatrics, and I repeatedly was seeing, unfortunately, kids who were coming there for the same problem. And when it comes to the developing world and underserved communities, it's very, very much, most of them are preventable diseases such as diarrhea. And when I was looking at at those cases, and I was like asking myself, is this really what I was trying to the way that I wanted to help people? That wasn't my answer, and I was looking for the underlying cause. Why are these people coming in the first at the hospital in the first place for something which is really easily preventable? And programs that you panelists and myself included are doing and approaching to health is trying to make sure that people understand that there are, other measures and preventable measures that can prevent diseases and make sure people are healthy. And when it comes to the time that it's really needed to go to the hospital or take some medications, that's a different story. But there are ways that we can prevent those. And definitely we will be happy to hear more from Dr. Nashat and her work soon. And now I guess Dr. Fung is still not here, so Dr. Ali has no excuse for ladies first. Please, Dr. L, go ahead and tell your why and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. Um, I, as a child, had ADHD, so that's basically where my story begins. Uh, and this is before ADHD was a diagnosis at the time. So I had my parents and my teachers scratching their heads, wondering, why I would get something in the first 10 minutes of class and disrupt the class for the remaining 50. So I do apologize to all parents, all teachers, for all the heartache that people like myself might have given them or might be giving them. And I always joke that it only took me a postdoctorate to realize what was wrong with me, which was that I had ADHD. And what happened was, in practice, there was a series of events that happened when I was working with autism spectrum children, that really awakened me to the fact that we need to change things a little bit. We were getting great results. We had people driving 3.5 hours to see us from 3 different states. But the problem was that, number one, that meant that the brick and mortar office was serving as a limitation to how I could serve. But additionally, oftentimes when the parents were coming in desperate to do something for their children, I saw, first of all, in the eyes of those children, that they had lost almost nearly that important first decade of their lives. And they had already started thinking there's something wrong with them, that, that they're not like the other people. So, and then the parents were trying to throw everything at them to hopefully something would stick. So that desperation was there. And oftentimes the most rewarding aspect for me was to see them have that light bulb go on, that made them realize, this is how the body works. And from there, they were able to actually make educated decisions. And this is something I spoke at Kennedy Krieger about, when I was talking to them, that when people get the desperation, they start looking for any type of answer. And then that is our failure as physicians, to be able to be there and to serve them, because they can hurt themselves in the process as well. So I also saw that as a failure of the healthcare system, because I think it really rests on the healthcare system's shoulders that we educate the public in such a way that they understand basic health, how their body functions, and how to take care of their body. Usually, these things, as the other doctors had mentioned, is that people are coming in and it's years of neglect and abuse and improper lifestyle that has led them to these points where now they have these acute and chronic problems alike that require immediate attention because they can't continue their lifestyle the way it has been going for years, basically. So I started moving into a more preventative role, and I stepped away from private practice and I started my online programs in that sense, to be able to kind of educate the public, and get them to understand, so that the children never develop these symptoms in the first place, that they can actually go ahead and make choices that will optimize their potential in their lives. And that's basically where we're at today. And one other thing that I wanted to mention is that, especially nowadays when we have the pandemic, I think the greatest service that the general public can do to the frontline workers is to make sure that they go ahead and take care of their health, so that they don't burden the system any further, because we're already stretched and we're trying to serve those that are in critical care.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Dr. L, I couldn't agree more. And I think the part of the reasons behind these panel discussions is also to make sure that we help people to stay healthy, and especially during this pandemic, and COVID-19, that if people are abiding by the public health directives, and that will definitely help physicians like Dr. Nashat and other physicians at the ER to pay attention to the really critical patients who need the most the help, and also preventing the overwhelming of hospitals and the health system, which is what everybody here on this panel, and also outside of this panel, are doing to help people prevent diseases and stay healthy and stay active, is really overall helping the system, the in wherever we are located. And your story is also very inspiring, Dr. L. And you are a great example of turning challenges into opportunities. And not only that, but also trying to help others. And with your program, which soon we will be hearing more about your programs and for children and for parents, that is really amazing. And I really appreciate all of you sharing your why, and that really is powerful. And meanwhile, I just texted, and hopefully Dr. Efying will join us. If not, we will be continuing and going to the back to Dr. Manu. Dr. Manu, you are the founder and CEO of a college called Bowen College. And why is it called Bowen College? And what do you do there?
Okay. Well, I wanted to, before going into that, I just wanted to make a point to add both to Dr. Nashat, or in the same direction as, and also Dr. L, which is that what we've noticed with this pandemic is that the people most affected are the people with what's called comorbidities. And I think, just to be, in case there's people in the audience that don't know what that is, but that means other types of typically preventable diseases. So I just want to really state how, should there ever be another pandemic, one of the key things to avoid the situation we're in is if we all take much more responsibility and charge of our health. Because if those numbers came down, then it would be the elderly, which, yes, elderly people will die at one point or another. And for many of them, and I have talked to quite a few, it's like, well, something's going to get to me, whether it's this virus or another thing. They're expecting that there is an end to life, and but it's the people with comorbidities that are too young to have them. This is where we have a huge percentage of change that can make a massive difference to our emergency medicine situation right now. So anyway, I just wanted to really make that point, because it was raised, and I think it's really important. When we think outside of the box, that's definitely where we should be going.
I want to chime in on that, if you don't mind, because that's a great point, Dr. Manon. And I want to take it a step further and just share some of the patterns that I'm seeing in the emergency department on the front line. And that is that, in the news and media, everyone talks about, the very old, or the immunocompromised, or the people with the comorbidities or other chronic health conditions. But what I'm finding in the ER is that a lot of the people who are coming in and are critical don't even either one, they're technically on paper healthy because they don't have any diagnoses, right? But there's a portion of them that just don't see a primary care physician, and so they have untreated diabetes and undiagnosed hypertension and undiagnosed, you name it, a whole bunch of conditions, and they come in and they're critical, and they could be in their 20s, or even actually 2 days ago, I took care of a critical 17-year-old who was presenting the same as my 92-year-old, a few days before that, in the sense that he was in respiratory failure, bilateral COVID pneumonia, and pressures dropping, septic shock. And I guess my point is that above and beyond what's on paper, it's a much broader picture. And there could even be those people that if they went to the doctor and had a regular checkup, everything on paper would still look fabulous. Their labs would be normal, their blood pressure is normal, their vital signs are perfect, but they are, cooking on a nonstick pan every day and eating processed foods and eating, junk food and refined sugars and lots of gluten. And those people are basically at a much higher kind of what I call baseline level of inflammation, because all of us at baseline have some level of inflammation. I describe it to my patients as our bodies kind of to help patients understand in sort of a easily digestible manner. I always say that our bodies have a cup for inflammatory cells, and how full that cup is based on the lifestyle choices that you make in your life. So if you live a very toxic lifestyle, which alludes to a few of the examples that I gave a second ago, your cup might be already 3/4 full, whereas somebody who lives a cleaner lifestyle might have a cup that's only a quarter of full. But on paper, these patients might be identical, same age, no health problems, same vital signs, same exact labs. But the reality is that somebody who's living with a cup that is 3/4 full of inflammatory cells at baseline is going to tip over very quickly if they get COVID, whereas the person who's living at a quarter of the level of inflammation is probably going to fare quite well. And so we don't hear about that in the media, right? They're only talking about healthy and unhealthy. They're not defining that on a deeper level. And I think that is so critical in terms of understanding what our numbers are and understanding what this pandemic really implies for us as a community and our health and wellness.
I also mentioned this is last March. I had a workshop. I held a workshop about how to deal with the incoming pandemic, basically. And one of the things I had mentioned is that beyond just looking beyond the mortality and morbidity and all of those, the fact of the matter is that if you catch the COVID and you give it a chance to go in your body, divide, replicate, and in turn infect other people, with every cell division, there's chance for mutations. And the more you give the virus that opportunity, the more the chance of this thing replicating, becoming something different. And while we might have a handle on this one, who knows about the next one? This is something I mentioned last March. Of course, now we're seeing the new strands that are coming about. And the reality of it is that it's not just about our life and death, but more so not providing more opportunities for these things to perpetuate and get out of hand as well. So definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely, and I agree with all of you, and especially the Dr. Nashad, you mentioned about that everything looks good on the paper, but then once you see the patients, it's really different what the examination or lab would be revealing, and that's important to know. And um, there's a huge topic about when we look for. I mentioned the definition of health in the very beginning by WHO, and that is the triangle. And I always mention that health is like that triangle. Dr. Manua, we're keeping you for.
No,
I'll get back to you to answer that question.
it's fine.
The health triangle is really that physical, mental, and social well-being. When you think of health as those triangles, and it's like all the sides are equal, and that makes it very like when we think about why are people who come at the ER are different on the paper than actually what's going on in their body, is again going back to those two other parts of it. Apart from the physical, it's mental and social. Especially with this time, these hard times during this pandemic, a lot of people are losing their jobs. A lot of people are staying at home or working from home, or with all the pressure. That is definitely causing a lot of burden on the mental part of health. Also with the with with the social part of it as well. And what we all do, and in general in public health, is that we're trying to make sure that people understand all the aspects of health, not only physical well-being. And unfortunately, I've seen and noticed it many times that people don't go, especially when it comes to underserved communities, and they don't go see the doctor or for checkups and stuff like that until they are, they can't walk, and that's the time then they go and seek for health, for help.
Mm.
And Dr. Manu, yes,
Yeah,
you
I
want
wanted to, we'll get back to my college, but this is really what I'm fascinated with, right? There wouldn't be a college if it wasn't for this type of thinking. So I'm more than happy to stick with exploring this, because I think that's what really changes people to understand deeper. But I think the idea with diagnosis and why what Dr. Nashad is seeing is perfectly normal people that are not normal. And it's partially because in functional medicine or naturopathic medicine, we do different levels of diagnostic testing that is for living people, like as in, I'm exaggerating slightly, but for example, kidney disease, by the time it's in standard testing discovered, your kidney's about 70% done. Many of it is already so tissue oriented that it's not functional. It's not actually something that we can uh, have an impact with. And so, and that's still on a somewhat physical level. Now, this may be, some people may not be in agreement with me here, but I'm going to throw it out because I've had this experience for 30 years and it's very hard not to. But there's also medicines like homeopathic medicine, which has been boohooed all over the place in recent journals and all that. But anyway, let's not go into the politics of that. Let's just say that the medicine involved there, the thinking is to look at the person not just as physical symptoms, but as mental, emotional, everything is looked at. So when we have a discussion, which is usually 2 hours, where most doctors don't have the privilege to have that because of the the clock ticking and 7 minutes or 15 minutes, etc. So it's not the doctors at fault here. It's a systemic problem, which is why we're discussing this. But when you get to really know the patient, you start to see much more what goes wrong. So when I talk about conflict, often it's stressors in a person's life that will eventually manifest in dis-ease and in symptoms. But that is also core to helping people, is to really understand the context for their pain, the context to their health. And I think that's one of the big shortcomings. And many of my physician friends are really tired of it. They say, like, you're so lucky you get to really help people and talk to people. And I go, yeah, it's a privilege, and I think that's one of the changes we need to look at, is take a larger understanding of what health actually is. Like, strangely enough, the WHO has a large definition. The rest, I'm not sure what's going on, but at least on that level, the definition is correct, Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in, but I'd love feedback.
Absolutely. If the other panelist wants to touch on that or comment on it, please go ahead. Otherwise, I would love to hear more from every panelist's, individual kind of approaches to health. But also, as I posed the question earlier to Dr. Manu, and for the audience who are listening also on Facebook and on Zoom, I personally want you all to know that there are, different ways to help people, and when it comes to health. And uh, these examples that the panelists are sharing their thoughts and their business and their work in approaching health holistically, or an upstream approach that I would call it, a comprehensive, integrative kind of approach to health, is really important, not only in the developing countries, but also in developed worlds as well. And I have noticed that, and I can talk days and months about how important it is to think outside of the box. And my whole journey is like that. Like, why do I do what I do? And that's, if time allows, I will be sharing also a little bit about that as well later. But let's go back to the question that I asked Dr. Manu earlier. And let's hear more about Bowen College. Why is it called Bowen College, and what do you actually provide there for
Okay.
people?
So it's called Bowen College because the person that inspired me, and at the very beginning, his name was Tom Bowen. So I felt that even though all therapies evolve with time, and in 30 years, certainly I evolved it for sure, it's still the principle of it, the beginnings of it. Really, I wanted to, in respect to him, attribute it to him. That's why.
Dear audience, we are on this panel discussion. For those of you who just joined through Facebook or Zoom, this panel discussion is called Health Beyond Hospitals and Private Practices. And I am Dr. Hamid Elamir. I am the host of Podcast with Dr. E. And today I'm leading this panel discussion with amazing physicians and healthcare providers who are actually sharing their work and their approach to health. And I would encourage every participant who is listening to this amazing panel discussion to think outside the box and make sure that you help your patients and your clients in the best way possible, if it's preventative medicine or if it's clinical medicine. And the ultimate goal for us is also that we are trying to help people and sharing our thoughts and experience with one another so that we can learn from experts across the world, so that we will have an upstream holistic and comprehensive approach to health in order to be helpful to reach out to more people. And soon we will learn also about the importance of such discussions and how these panelists are reaching to thousands of people across the world, and making sure that they're healthy and more productive, and they're successful in their day-to-day business and jobs. Because if you are not healthy, definitely it's hard to run your programs and your business, especially the healthcare providers. You will learn a lot from the experts on the panel about health beyond hospital and private practices. And with that, I'm going back to Dr. Manu, and let's continue.
Let's see what happens now.
Here.
Okay, well, I'll get to the point quickly so it doesn't stop me. So one of the things I noticed in my practice is that people came with pain. And that's very common. 80% of the population has pain at one point or another. And I felt that I needed something to address pain that allowed the body to respond without natural medication, without drugs, just by the body's own capacity to heal pain. And that's what got me on this long road to understanding fascia, but also understanding the autonomic nervous system and understanding stress and trauma and how it lives in the body. And I was wondering, why is it that people, let's say they have a car accident, they go see physiotherapists, for example, or they see a massage therapist, and they're there for a couple of years often. And it takes so long for the body to regain its health. And it just never sat with me. I like efficiency, so I was like, something else is I'm not fully understanding, right? And so when I came across this work, I ended up realizing that one of the big things that we need to do is put people out of this sympathetic overdrive state. And that if we don't go into parasympathetic, which is our repair and restore mode, then healing is really not easy or possible. And so I noticed that this work did this. And so I had people coming in with frozen shoulder, with, car accidents, where the trauma was still living in their body. And so it's not like mechanically helping them. That was such a short, small way of looking at it, really mechanistic way of looking at it. And this allowed me to deeply understand that the entire body needs to heal. And so that's the work I started. I started doing it with different conditions, different cases, but always with pain. And then I had an opportunity in Nova Scotia to deal with real trauma, like trauma, not just physical trauma, but like incest and all kinds of emotional traumas. And though the method I learned was quite mechanistic, my interest and my background led me to a completely different path. I was being referred these patients saying, is there anything else? And they were from therapists or psychiatrists. Like there was actually a small community in a small place. It's a small community. And let me try, let me see if I can help them. And what I noticed is that the body wants to heal. We're literally programmed to heal. All we need to do is literally reboot. It's like, and it's the analogy of my computer, exactly. And of course that would show up. It's like when things don't quite work, we have all our programs inside of us, but sometimes you need to power down and reboot, and then it works. So it's not like you have to do heavy fixing. It's more just reignite that vital force within us that wants to heal. I mean, we know with placebo, we're 30% more likely to heal anyways. Like the research is there, we call it placebo, we ignore it. But if we went beyond placebo, we actually did no harm to the body. And we went in the direction of giving it what it needs, rebooting it, then the potential is unbelievable. And that's one of the pleasures I have in my practice is every day going, oh my goodness. I too can't believe what your body has done. It's amazing. I'm in awe. And now I'm no longer in my practice. I'm doing a bit what Dr. L is doing online and teaching people this methodology. But I think that's the essence of it, is allowing people to recognize the power of healing they have within themselves. And it's gotten me so excited. I've also created online courses for the public, for families to actually use this therapy in their homes, because it can be done so simply. Of course, there's therapists that can do more, but the essence of it is simple, and healing is simple. And that's really the message I want to get out there. So, okay.
I just wanted to interrupt you, Dr. Manu, for a second. And definitely, it's really important. I wanted to hear more. But you just brought up the idea of online, programs. And our audience is from around the world. And so is my podcast. My podcast is that was like 2 months ago. I think it's even probably more now. In 23 countries, they were listening to the podcast, and I'm counting. There will be probably more than that now. People are listening to health issues, and especially when it comes to online programs and thinking outside the box and really different than I mean, not really different, but a little extra, going an extra mile to to think outside of the box. And we as health practitioners, and whatever we studied through medical school, of course that's very important, and that helped us a lot, and that's why we are doing, to help people. But when you see there's so many other things that is not in the textbook, and how you can approach to help to people, and making sure that they are healthy, and have all the needs that they all the necessary help that they need, is through these online courses. And I think it's very important, especially during this pandemic time and with the technology, and during this 2021, that you can reach out to the whole world, just at the comfort of just sitting in your own room, and even using your own phone, like not necessarily even a computer. A lot of people will be just helping people through that. And how amazing is that especially when it comes to programs that are designed based on the experience and living those days yourself. Like we all have a story behind your why, and why you do what you do. And a lot of people are struggling to stay healthy, to find actually the reliable sources that could help them. And programs like your programs, and many other ones, it's really important, and we need to raise awareness. We need to talk about it more, and we need more discussions like this to actually share it with people so that they can learn about such programs. And Dr. Manu, you just mentioned about you have the program for health providers, and also for people in general. Like I was just assuming maybe you have also programs for layperson, like they don't have to necessarily be health professionals. We will definitely come back to you, Dr. Manu, and listen more about that program. And I do have some specific questions about your program, about Dr. L's program and Dr. Nashad's programs. But before that, the other panelists, if you wanted to jump in and share your thoughts about the importance of such programs, and how and we can reach out to a lot of people online. And if we are sitting in private practice or the hospital, that is really limited to a small number that we are surrounded by. And I believe that healthcare providers are meant to impact millions of people, not only the people just around our hospital or private practice. What are your thoughts, Dr. L and Dr. Nashad?
I was just going to mention that I think one of the pluses to this pandemic has been the fact that as people have gone online for answers and for resources, it has really brought health and healthcare to their homes. Whereas before, yeah, you could Google something, but how accurate is that? But now there's actually a host of providers that are actually seeing that that is the way to communicate, and they're communicating with the general public. And it no longer has to be within your neighborhood neither. You can have a much bigger impact throughout the world. And that's actually one of my main goals, is to create a coalition of healthcare providers and people who want to make a difference globally, and not just in my neighborhood, basically.
Amazing. That's amazing. And we are um, thinking along the same line, and that's very important to have that collaboration. And doing something individually is different than doing it in a group and in a holistic approach. And Dr. Nishad, you wanted to add something? You wanted to agree or disagree to the points we just
Yeah, no,
mentioned?
I absolutely agree. And I think that, you know, I think COVID has really brought a very well needed mindset shift and a hard reset for our community and beyond, because it's really emphasized the importance of health. I mean, never before in my lifetime has there ever been a circumstance that has demanded attention to health.
Hmm.
And I think that now more than ever, online programs are, our most valuable resources and ways that we can really impact a lot of people. And that was the reason that I launched my detoxification program last summer, for precisely that reason, because there was a huge need and
Mhm.
I just didn't have enough hours in the day to serve as many people that I wanted to serve and impact. And so, um, the creation of this program was really my segue into, being able to deliver services in that manner.
Absolutely. Dr. Nashad, you just pointed to the program that you have created and you are working on that about the detox. Definitely, I will be coming back to you to learn more about that program and how is it really different than from other programs online. And one thing that I wanted to mention also to the audience and people who would be listening again after this program is going to this panel discussion is going to be recorded, and hopefully more people will be benefiting from it as we reshare again the recorded ones. Also, the a lot of participants probably struggling with registering through Zoom, because last time I did it, just had it free to everybody can join. This time it was a little restricted, and I I don't know why did I restricted that part, but it's okay that this will be shared, and then again people will be listening to it. The important part was that why is it when we talk about such programs and people are you know listening, and Dr. L just brought it up, and Dr. Nishad, you just mentioned about your program. Dr. L mentioned about the sometimes like people just Google stuff, and I wanted to mention that these programs and panel discussions with professionals is really different than what we, of course, than what people can just Google there. There are a lot of unreliable sources. There's, so much confusion going on, especially during this pandemic time. And a lot of people are just, desperately looking for help and for news and something, which I would say that my one of my recommendations for people when they were asking me like what should I do during this time? It's really hard, this pandemic and COVID and everything. Um, I would always suggest and advise people to, first of all, you have to be aware. By awareness, I mean that get your information from reliable sources. Reliable sources can be your own physicians. It could be if you have any physicians or healthcare practitioners in your circle of family and friends, and of course the local health department, the reliable sources of health websites. For example, the CDC and Johns Hopkins here in the U.S. are actually producing a lot of information there. Of course, in Canada and around the world, there are so many good examples of this, and and then it comes to programs like this. There are panel discussions, webinars, workshops, podcasts across the world that health practitioners are coming together to share their thoughts with people, and it's very valuable. And programs like this, and my ultimate goal is to just reach out to so many, as many people as we can, to help them really get their information from reliable sources. When this program is recorded and people can go back to it and share it with their friends and family to learn more about it. The programs, of course, you do have your own programs, and Dr. L, you are also a neuroscientist, and you have when it comes to neuroscience, it's really fascinating to me. Um, and I would say that I personally wanted to know more about how brain works and how, because I think that we are nothing but the byproduct or of our own thoughts. Whatever comes or goes on inside of us is actually reflecting outside. And that is how we think, and the process of thought and what we do is really important, and shaping our health, our decisions that we make, and our success in life. And you also have a background in chiropractic medicine, also, passionate about helping parents and their children, to have safe and healthy lifestyles. You're, as I mentioned earlier, you're mainly focused on the foundation of of healthy eating. Could you just please tell us a little more about what is what is this program, and what do you share with your clients and with people on the foundations of healthy eating?
Absolutely. Thank you. Um, I find it interesting because as much as I'm a holistic practitioner, my science background and my years of research kind of always get me into breaking things down into their bits and pieces and structuring things from ground up in such a way. So actually, to piggyback from Dr. Mano's discussion about the autonomic nervous system and the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, one of the functions of the higher brain centers is actually inhibition of the sympathetic nervous system and the bringing about the balance of the parasympathetics. And of course, so as we mentioned, because of my bias, everything has to be brain based. That was my experience in private practice, that oftentimes when I address the brain, many of these other ailments were basically a side effect of the brain not functioning properly. So the core of most of my programs is that if you want to show up to life as the best self, if you want to share your gifts with humanity, if you want to be top health, then you need to be able to control what goes on in your body. And at the center of that for me is the brain. The brain controls the function of everything else in the body. So, coming from that perspective, I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do to support the brain so that it in turn can go ahead and support the body and ultimately how you show up in life? And in that process, there are certain things that I created as like a pyramid, basically. And at the bottom of it, at the foundational piece, is nutrition and water, basically hydration. And then right above that would be rest and oxygenation. And then at top of the pyramid would be the proper neural stimulation. And of course, when I talk about proper neural stimulation, we're not talking about stimulants like sugar and caffeine or video games. We're talking about actual movement that drives some of the stronger neuroreceptors that you have in your body to send signals to the brainstem. So it's movement based, basically, in gravity, through joints, through fascia, and all of those, basically. Uh, but that's at the higher end of it. And what my experience has shown me is that in the developing countries, the focus seems to be more, needs to be more on the foundational pieces to support the brain. And in the developed countries, it's the lifestyle that ultimately causes an inadequate amount of rest, inadequate amount of oxygenation, or proper neural stimulation. But regardless, we need to have all of these there so that when we ask our brain to do something, it doesn't crash and burn, basically. So as a result of it, the nutrition thing is what I typically start with anybody coming to me, is that's the foundational piece, because that's the building blocks for your brain, that's the fuel for your brain. And of course, you need to have that before you can even start building. And of course, in the case of children, they're developing, so that's even more critical, more important. And of course, my company is Role Model Maker. So our goal is that, as you mentioned, the brain is such a centerpiece of how we show up in the universe. And I look at it as the brain is a reality emulator. It takes the universe and has to transform it into these chemical and neurologic signals within itself. And when you think about it, it's really detached from the rest of the universe. It's like encased in the skull
Yeah.
without anything else attached to it. So in order for it to be able to take those and make sense of it, then those pictures that come in, those signals that come in, have to be put together in a cohesive fashion that ultimately, when you try to base your decisions off of it, it can go ahead and project the right response. So with the case of the autism spectrum disorder, a lot of the kids are not getting the proper signals coming in. So the reality they have inside their brain is very different than the average person's. So their response happens to be very different. So that and that can go into your financial decision making, career decision making, and everything else, right? Risk assessment, all of those things, what you stand for, what you stand against. So as a result, when I look at it, is all right, let's address the nutrition, the foundational piece. And if we can make sure that, for instance, the blood sugar level is maintained and it doesn't go up and down and it's not out of control, when people understand what foods can create inflammation in their body and which ones can avoid inflammation, and how to go ahead and optimize your brain function so that it can efficiently focus as opposed to be distracted by all these internal signals that's going on because your body is not functioning properly. So that's basically what our program tends to focus on.
Nice. That's great. That's very amazing. And the flip side of it, like, when you talked about when people come to you, or the clients, you first thing, the question is that what do you actually eat, in terms of nutrition and stuff. And uh, it's also, very important when it comes to health. And we talked about the triangle of health and how is it's, when people are thinking, of course, it's very important. You mentioned about the nutrition and how is it affecting our body. We are very cautious. What do we put in our mouths? In other words, and it has to be, fruits and vegetables and healthy stuff, and not junk foods. And when it comes to the thoughts and even just speaking to someone or listening to someone, it's equally important what we put in our brain. What do we feed our brains? What do we feed our minds and mentally? Because a lot of information, which is some of them unfortunately misinformation and negativism, and those things will be like those junk foods that comes to our brain. And we do want to stay healthy and slim and have a good physique, but how about our brains in the same way, like how we think, how we act and interact on a daily basis, and what do we allow to come to our minds and brain, and what should we prevent from, like as we are preventing getting a lot of sugar in our food, or a lot of calories, same thing along that line. And it's really amazing that what you're doing and putting all these things together and connecting these dots, making sure that people are doing the right way and staying healthy and active. And at the end of the day, as I said, it will affect our productivity and the process of thought and what we do, what we make, decisions on a daily basis. Um, that's with that, I think we're going to go to a little more, just specific questions on for the other panelists. But also, I received a question from the participants that, of course, and it comes with different parts of the world and underserved communities. Like there are questions. One, Saeed actually asked why most of attention is given to hospitals and private practice or private sector, and rather beyond that, which by that I mean he means by the community, as he says. Is the community not aware of importance of health beyond hospitals? That's a question that I would pose to the panelists, and whoever wants to jump in, please go ahead. So yeah, the question was basically about why all the attention is just to private sectors and in hospitals and not to the communities. Is it the communities that they are not aware of such programs, or is it the other way around systematically? And of course, this comes from Saeed. I assume that Saeed is in Afghanistan. But one of the reasons that I put these programs is that, countries like Afghanistan, where I originally come from, and the rest of the developing countries, their role model is developed countries. And how can they learn from programs around the world? And I think we kind of like alluded on that part, like how we should raise awareness about programs like this. And yeah, it'll be great to have your thoughts on that, panelists.
I can attempt an answer. Yeah, I mean, I think it's complex because the infrastructure of the medical system, there's a lag time. For example, even now in medical school, and with everything, Dr. El was saying, we know how important nutrition is, but why is nutrition not yet on the syllabus? What's going on, right? So if you take the dark side, oh, they don't want us to get healthy. Is it the dark side, or is it just a very long, I think they say 17 years before something changes, but it's been longer than 17 years. Now, are there other interests at play? And this is now coming from my legal background. When you look at the complexity of it, what is being financed? Why is there not money being given for good quality foods, for access to foods, for true community support, rather than the emergency end of the game, even the respirators, all of that. Like, I get that it's needed on one level, but I think it's really time to rehaul the entire, pharmaceutical medical complex. And I think that from many of my doctor friends, they feel like they're almost agents or, pharmacy peddlers, instead of actually giving people true informed consent, giving them everything they need, saying, look at this and that and that. They're tied into a system which is bigger than one individual doctor can handle. It really needs a collaborative shift. And I don't know, with the interests at play, how easy that is. Anyway, I'll leave it at that diplomatic moment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And being on the front line and being in the traditional medical world, I feel that more now than ever before. Furthermore, that is the primary reason that when I launched my practice, which is functional medicine, and actually quite a unique model, probably different than most practices, in that my practice is more or less a one-stop shop to wellness. So I have everything from, it's a boutique fitness studio, as well as infrared sauna, nutrition, health coaching, functional medicine, and creating a fertility program, detoxification programs, group programs, personal training. I have everything under one roof. And, and because of the nature of what I created with my business partner, we really had to make it a cash practice because unfortunately there are so many services that I provide under that roof and in the online world that really aren't covered by insurance. And so that's a whole nother, can of worms that we could probably spend several hours discussing is, what is the criteria from, these insurance companies of what is, appropriate to be covered and not, what qualifies as medical care and what does not. And I think that is a huge issue, an underlying problem, in my opinion, because I am, for instance, a cash practice. So, already I'm limiting the access that people have to my services, which was one of the reasons that I'm very passionate about creating online programs, because not only does it allow me to impact more people, but it also allows me to lower the cost. And my ultimate goal at the end of this whole journey is to become, get to a financial place where I'm able to turn my attention to our communities in a philanthropic way and provide, these types of services, education, and nourishment, and I mean that on so many different levels, right? Personal, medicinal. I mean, so many different things. I mean, nourishment is a very big word in my mind. But nourish our communities really at no cost. You know, if I can get to that point, that is really my ultimate goal, because that is when I feel like I will achieve my personal goal in terms of, you know, being able to serve in this world in the way that I was meant to serve. So I agree. The pharmaceutical industry is also, you know, not the most diplomatic arena, I guess. And the reality is that just if we want to just talk about hard science, we can make any study show what we want it to show. And we can skew our results in a lot of different ways. And so I always urge my patients and my colleagues to critique the literature, you know, with a discerning eye, and really tear it apart and figure out if it's a real study before you take that information and apply it to your practice. And I do that both in a traditional world and in the functional medicine world, you know, because we can taint studies any way we want in any arena. And so I think it's so important that our community and the public are educated on the validity of a scientific study and how to truly analyze what the results mean in the context of health. And how you apply that to, you know, your practice and your personal life. So I think it's a complex issue, and I think COVID has turned it all on its head. People are realizing the need to focus on, you know, for instance, boosting immunity, which we didn't really hear about it that much, right?
Right.
Everyone was kind of cruising along. And not really thinking much, and all of a sudden there's a huge insult that's requiring everybody to make this huge paradigm shift, which I think at the end is going to be a really powerful one. And I pray and hope that, you know, by the time my kids' generation gets to where we are, that we'll be in a very different place.
Yes, and I pretty much agree with what you said, and I am hopeful and sure that efforts like yourself, you know, that you're putting a lot of efforts there, and, you know, Dr. Bell, Dr. Manu, and so many other people around the world are actually thinking about ways to help people and impact millions of people. And how can we do it through online programs? It's really, I would say, a shorter way to approach to millions of people. And especially to when it comes to people who really cannot afford to, you know, pay for programs. And programs like this, even this panel discussion itself is really, you know, a way to help people to understand, have an idea what they exactly are looking for. And especially when it comes to healthcare providers, and specifically to this question that was posed, either it's the community that are not aware, or is it the systematic approach? Why is the focus only on hospitals and private practice? I do wanted to also comment on that, but I wanted to hear if Dr. L wanted to, you know, add anything or agree or disagree with this.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and this is also, you mentioned that a lot of the developing countries look to the developed countries as a role model. And the trouble is, the capitalistic model has its pros and cons. We're not here to
Right.
debate that. But the thing is that there is a checks and balances in the capitalistic system, which depends on the consumer. Now,
Right.
if we keep the consumer in ignorance, then the capitalistic system goes unchecked. So as a result, when you have no health education that teaches the public what to do, whether it is in a developing country of where your water source is coming from, or how you prepare your food properly, or when it comes to those things, or in a more developed country, as far as things about how your body works and what's being put into your foods, then the end result is that they don't know any better. And that was one of the things that caused me to step away from private practice, because as Dr. Nashat said, you know, when insurance companies, which are the primary source of funding for taking care of people's health, says, all of these things are not covered as necessary or medically necessary, then that leaves a lot on the table that now people who either can't afford or don't know any better have to figure out on their own. And now their health needs are not being addressed. And of course, if we can bring programs such as the ones that we have here to the public, and if people understand that there is this big part that's left, that not everything that the insurance company does or does not cover is the beginning and end of their health, and that they have to take an active approach to taking care of their health and where to start, then that would be the proper place to put the checks and balances on the capitalistic model of healthcare that we have. And it would be more balanced and it'll hopefully turn out better.
I just want to add something to that.
Yes.
I'm in agreement with what you're saying, Dr. L. And I was thinking, like in Canada, because I'm in Canada, we have third-party insurance that covers some of these alternative therapies. And yet the testing, for example, we can get many of our many tests covered, but vitamin D is a separate pay out of pocket. And if you think about that, and especially with this pandemic, when we know that vitamin D is a crucial element, there is a kind of, what's the word in English? It's like we're saying, it's not that valuable, right? It's like, it's kind of like a consent of this is what matters and the rest is secondary. Right. So it's really about how do we get, and the public will think, oh, well, vitamin D, I mean, I've seen it. Oh, well, I have to pay for that. It must not be that important. I've had people say that to me and I'm, no, we need, you're suffering from depression. We need vitamin D tested here. Let's check out your levels, right? We live where it rains a lot. We must check it, right? And the fact that it's not gives the bias to the public that the government somehow knows better, right? And I think it's very important that we have this type of discussion. And, one of the things is, I'm very big on informed consent. What does informed consent mean? If physicians or first line health workers are not informed of all the different studies, research, everything that's actually happening or practices, then how can they tell a patient there's only this choice and you must say yes or no? And I think it's very important that we have this discussion because they can't know everything. I can't know what everyone else is doing. So somehow we need that platform where the public goes, oh, I didn't know that there was, let's say, a chiropractor or a Bowen therapist, or I don't know what functional medicine is, or, many people don't know what a naturopathic physician is. Like, nobody knows this. Not nobody, but not enough people understand what else is available to them in an open public forum that's got support, right? So I love what you're doing, Hamid, starting that discussion. I think it's so essential. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing your thoughts about this and all the panelists. I just wanted to add in agreement with all the panelists that when it comes to health issues and community versus, the government or the local government or systematic approach to health, I've lived in Afghanistan pretty much most of my life, and it's unfortunately the attention there to public health and community kind of approach is not enough, at least I would say. And part of the reasons there that the community, to answer that question, the communities are not aware of such programs. And the reason I did my master's in public health and focus on community health education here in the US is basically coming from that experience that I was there at the tertiary hospital in private practice. And I mean, I didn't do that much private practice, but at the hospital, as a senior resident in pediatrics, I was seeing those patients that who would come to the hospital on a daily basis, as Dr. Nashat was mentioning earlier, repeatedly, for the same reason. And when I looked for the underlying cause, that was one of the I would say that a life-changing experience for me. That's why I did this paradigm shift from clinical to public health, was that I was on call as a senior resident in pediatrics, the third year, and I'm seeing patients, from heart disease to renal failure and everything in that ICU, and then the nurse just comes in and says that we have another critical patient in the OPD. And when I see that 6-year-old girl, she was in irreversible shock and in a very critical condition that unfortunately we were not able to save her life with the facilities and equipment that we had there. And when I looked for the underlying cause, she was on the way for 3 days. Coming from a remote area, her parents, of course, didn't even have a car to drive. I don't know how did they get there, but coming to a tertiary hospital with that critical condition, what was more shocking for me was that when I looked for the underlying cause, and it was diarrhea, and a very easily preventable disease such as diarrhea can cause that kind of critical condition for a patient that we don't even have, the choice. I mean, we cannot even save their lives. That is something that is lack of awareness, lack of course, it's not only lack of awareness, but it's also lack the systematic approach to health, that there is no facilities. There are no, of course, maybe in that community that they were living, there were no hospitals or clinics nearby so they could reach. That is one case. The second reason behind that is that the mother and the father, they couldn't even read and write. So literacy itself, just basic literacy, not health education or anything, it has a huge impact. When we look for the underlying causes of health, when we look for the social determinants of health from a public health perspective, lack of education, lack of awareness, lack of access to quality health, socioeconomic status, and these all play a role in people's health. And when a mother is educated, is really different than a mother who is not educated. By that I mean that the mother knows when the kid, her child, is suffering from diarrhea, what to give to her or him, and what to not to give to them, and what are some of the signs that there are a lot of information, that they can learn about those signs and symptoms of dehydration and bring them to the clinic or hospital in the right time. And also it is with the systematic approach to health that unfortunately, when it comes from the developing countries, there's not enough fundings for programs like that to have hospitals and clinics, in every corner of the country. And to developing world, of course, there are programs, and but again, public health and thinking outside of the box is not enough here in the US. It's not enough in Canada. It's not enough, I guess, across the world. That's why we are putting programs like this. And I highly encourage, especially the healthcare providers across the world, to think outside of the box and use their expertise in a way that they can, bring more, help for people through their online courses, through their consulting, even public and community kind of gatherings that you share your expertise. And as Dr. Nashat was mentioning about being a philanthropist, eventually to help people with no cost. That is amazing. So I was just looking at the time, and we have 25 more minutes. I am going to pose a couple of questions. I was reading also about the programs that each one of the panelists are doing. I kind of posed some of the questions, but I do wanted to know also about Dr. Manu's program that she has also, about the stress, and she recently also had a TEDx talk, and so did Dr. L. And congratulations on that, your TEDx talk recently. And Dr. Manu, you're passionate about fascia as well, and I wanted to know also more about that. And what is the program or
Mhm.
course that you developed on simple solutions for stress.
Okay,
Can you just
so
explain a little more about that?
sure. So it's actually available for free. It's a an hour and 3/4, so it's a bit long, but it's in depth, and it's simplesolutionsforstress.com. And so it's like a master class that gives you an overview of why it's important to work with the fascia, and it answers many of the questions that I've had over the years. And then if people resonate with it, then there's an option to go deeper. And of course, I run an entire college if people are like, oh my goodness, because I've had some of my own patients decide to learn this and join Bowen College and become practitioners themselves. But at this stage, and because of the pandemic, doing something to do with touch is not very popular. So I would recommend that people look at it for in-house, for their families, for their kids. And the kind of benefits are renewed energy, 100%, better sleep, just feeling more centered, less pain. It may not deal with every pain because this is for the public, so it's not deep, but I've had so much feedback, positive feedback from my own patients in other provinces, because I've worked across Canada, saying I love this. I do this to my kids love it. Also couples. It's an interesting way. It's not like massage where you have to, where it's very full on. It's very gentle. You do little moves. It's like orchestrated moves, simple to do. And now that I can see without, because normally I like to give a workshop to support, and I have workshop leaders everywhere that have their own practices willing to support. At this stage, I'm getting feedback that the videos alone work. So it's not my favorite way, but apparently the results are there. So yeah, that's what I would recommend people go to. And of course, from there, you can link directly with Bowen College or with myself on my own website, drmanonboliger.com. It might have to be written because it's a name that most people can't swallow.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah.
big name.
um, so, Dr. Nashad, you are also, I guess, passionate about detox, and as an ER physician, you say that you have in your other practice that you started, and you said it's a one-stop to health, which is really a great way to put it there. And why did you focus on detox, and what does it really make different? What is the difference between your program coming from a physician and to a lot of information that, as I said, about detox and other health-related stuff online? Can you just
Yeah,
tell us?
absolutely. Absolutely. So just tying into what we were talking about with Dr. Manon, I love um, the, fascia and lymphatic system. There's so much more kind of manual anti-inflammatory therapy that can be done. And so one of the other services that I do offer at my what I call one-stop shop to wellness is I have another DO like myself who practices osteopathic manipulative medicine. And so that is a very large part of our practice as well. So, so I'm on the same wavelength there, Dr. Manon. I share your passion for healing from the inside out and from the outside in. There's so much that we can do in both directions. But as far as my detox program is concerned, I really launched that in the middle of the pandemic. I launched it last June and have put over 300 people through the program since then. It is an online program really focused on helping the body flush out toxins. Unfortunately, we live in a toxic world. There's really nothing that we can do to get away from toxins. All we can do is try to clean up our environment as much as we can and make lifestyle choices that make our lives a little bit cleaner. And there's lots of things that we can do really quickly, simple things like putting certain species of plants in our homes that will detoxify and clean the air, getting rid of our nonstick pans and going for pans that don't have that chemical coating that is going to emit gas, changing from plastic to glass. There's so many little things that we can do on a day-to-day basis to clean up our lives and really make a significant impact on our health and our baseline level of inflammation. And also tying back earlier, I do really believe that, getting the body into that sympathetic state, is a result of, our sympathetic drive, which most of us are all in sympathetic overdrive, is really subject to really three main forms of stress. I mean, the stress that we all recognize as stress, then dietary stress, which could be something as simple as skipping a meal, or hidden forms of pain and inflammation, which bring us back to the topic of toxins, because toxins are hidden, right? We don't realize that we're being exposed to it. We don't realize that when we buy a new couch or a new piece of furniture that there's off-gassing going on that is significantly impacting our health. And so my detoxification program is really aimed on educating the community on simple changes that they can make, in their lives and in their own homes for the health of themselves and their family. But also to give them the tools and framework to allow them to create a mind shift and lifestyle shift that is cleaner. And that comes down to food and nutrition. My program includes a very detailed food and nutrition plan. But one of the biggest elements of it, it's a 1-month program. Week 1 and week 4 are just focused on food. Weeks 2 and 3 are food, plus some shakes and supplements that are really aimed at revving up the liver's detoxification system. And so the liver has phase 1 and phase 2 of the detoxification system. And this is working at baseline in all of our bodies. But if we're not supporting it with the correct amount of vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and amino acids, it's going to work a lot less efficiently. And so the difference between my program versus what a lot of, detox programs on the market are all about is that my program is not calorie restricted. It's very food focused. There's nothing in there that's unnatural or not found in food or produced by our own bodies. And so it is really a medical grade detox, whereas a lot of the other detoxes that are out there, which right now I'm seeing on social media and a lot of places, people saying that, a detox is really just a marketing scam and a marketing gimmick. And I would agree that there are a lot of programs out there like that. Because a lot of like the juice cleanses, for instance, they're not packed with all the vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and amino acids that we need to truly physiologically detox our bodies. They're really just aimed at emptying your gut, and so you lose a lot of water weight and you empty out your bowels and you get on the scale and you're happy and you lose 5 pounds in 5 days or whatever they promise, because that's easy to do when you're not eating, and you're just drinking liquid and emptying your gut and getting rid of water weight. I mean, we're all going to lose 5 pounds like that. But what happens when you start eating? Survey that audience. All that weight's going to come right back. It's not sustainable weight loss. What I love about my detox program also is that I get the opportunity to educate the community on what the impact of toxins are. And just to give you a little vignette so that our audience really understands just the act of getting up and getting ready in the morning and not even leaving your house, but just getting ready for work, you're exposed to over 200 chemicals in your own home. So we cannot get away from it, right? And I'm not here to tell everyone that they need to get rid of everything in their house and change everything, but it's more about maximizing, your choices to create as clean of a lifestyle as possible, and really focused on fulfilling your diet and your body with everything that it needs to support our natural physiological biochemical processes so that we can truly flush out toxins. Since we can't get rid of them, we can't get rid of them from our environment. We have to be able to get rid of them from our body. And, a lot of people love that. A little side perk of the program is that a lot of my clients who join my program lose weight. And it's not because we're starving them of calories. It's really just that we are flushing out toxins. And one of the places that our body stores toxins is in fat. And our body will hang on to fat so that it has places to stuff toxins so it doesn't affect our cells and our biochemical processes. So once our body starts shedding all these toxins, our body is clever, right? We're all talking about the same thing, our innate ability to heal. And so our body realizes, oh, I don't have as many toxins to hide in pockets of fat. So let me just get rid of the fat too, because we don't need it anymore. And so I really kind of, my through line and the phrase that I live by is that a toxic body is a broken body. And so if we can start the detoxification process on a biochemical level, which really, like I said, consists of revving up the liver so it can do what it's supposed to do, it has a profound impact on health. And I've had my participants, about 100% of my participants said that the program had a positive impact on their health. I've had people, give me testimonials that their brain fog is gone, and all of a sudden they went from having, 50 hot flashes a day to maybe, 5 to 10. They've lost weight. One of my participants said that she had clearer eyesight. Another one had been told by her dermatologist that she would only ever be able to get rid of her acne if she went on Accutane. She did the detox, and she'd been struggling with acne for probably about 15 to 20 years. She went on the detox, it was all gone. Another one of my clients had a persistent chronic psoriatic arthritis, and it disappeared after the detox program. And it's amazing because the detox program might only be 4 weeks, but I'm leaving my community and my clients with lasting tools that they can apply in their lives. So my client with the psoriatic arthritis has completely changed her life and her diet, and the arthritis is staying away. So all of a sudden she went from living in chronic pain to a life of joy where she's able to play with her grandchildren and, get down on the floor, and do what she wants to do. So yeah, I'm really passionate about detoxification and the impact that it has. I really do feel like it's the first step, one of the first steps in a healing journey. There's lots of different ways to get from A to B, but this is one that I definitely am really passionate about just because I've seen how effective it's been.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dr. Nashad. And it's really amazing that programs like your program and the other panelists can help a lot, a lot of patients, a lot of, clients across the world. And I do encourage people who are listening and people who would be rewatching this and watching the recorded ones to go ahead. We only have like 5-7 minutes. I just wanted to wrap up and making sure that our panelists are, their timing is critical and they have their busy schedule, and I really appreciate all the panelists being here during this difficult time to share their thoughts and experience as well as their resources with the world so that they can learn from experts and stay healthy, active, and productive. I just wanted to read a couple of the comments that I wasn't able to go through that while I was, 1 month show doing everything here with the technical things, reading all the questions and everything. But I just wanted to read a couple of the comments that people put also on Facebook, which is really encouraging. And so lots of people said thanks and wonderful and helpful, and it's very inspiring. And people are saying that they're glad to be here. And of course, one is to directly to Dr. Manur, also looking forward to thinking outside the box and learning more from your online courses. And so are also the other panelists here. And I really appreciate and applaud again all the panelists for taking the time to be on this amazing panel discussion during this critical time and sharing your thoughts about health and how can we approach health from different angles, from as beyond hospital and private practices, and thinking outside the box. And at the end of the day, making sure that people are healthy and they don't have to worry if they don't have the facilities in the developing countries. Also here in the US, a lot of people are just unfortunately underserved, so they just go back there to the links that we share and get some necessary information there. with very little cost or no cost at all. And thank you again so much, everybody. And your last thoughts, please share. And we have 3 minutes.
I'm going to quickly say, because I have to jump off.
Please go ahead.
First of all, I do want to invite everybody to our Food and Fitness Facebook group. It's called Food and Fitness 101. It's a place where you can get basic and reliable information on that. And I would invite all of our audience members to join us there. And we'd love to see you and support you there. I really have been honored to be part of this panel and to be able to share my thoughts and my ideas. And I'm honored to have met both Dr. Nashat and, of course, I know Dr. Manal as well. So pleasure to be here. And thank you, Dr. Almir.
Pleasure is ours. And thank you. Feel free to, you have 2 more minutes, Dr. L. If you want it anytime, please feel free, because I know you have something just right at 1 o'clock. And listening to the other panelists for a little lesson, for last words and thoughts here.
Well, I want to thank you for putting this together. It's been such a pleasure. I do know Dr. L, but to have met also Dr. Nashat, I think we'll be connecting. So I really appreciating you putting this together for everybody and for us, because it takes a team to make a change. So thanks very much. It's been an honor.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And we will definitely continue collaboration and learning from one another. Dr. Nashat.
Yeah, absolutely. Just echoing everybody. It's been a pleasure to be here. And I so appreciate being a part of this and a part of your journey and your mission, Hamid, because I just, yeah, we're all so much on the same wavelength and coming from different angles. And so it's really wonderful to be able to collaborate in this manner, and definitely want to encourage our audience to use all of us as a resource, because we are essentially here to support you during this very challenging time. And as we turn the clock forward on a very bright and exciting 2021.
Absolutely, and I really appreciate every panelist's time and dedication to health. And again, say thank you to all audience and participants, and through Facebook, Zoom, and every other platforms that you're using. And this will be shared again. Stay healthy, stay active, and stay productive. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the day.